Do you keep on putting off your showreel because you don't know where to start? Well, stop procrastinating and watch the rest of this video, because I'm going to share with you my step-by-step guide to create an amazing showreel, even if you've got no client work. Stick around to see me review my students' showreels and answer the most commonly asked questions that I get asked about showreels. So step 1 is to choose your best work. Now make sure you don't put anything in here that you don't want to be hired for. People make this mistake all the time. They think, well, this is a decent shot. Maybe I'll just stick it in there, even though it's not really the work that I actually want to do. But if you do that, people are going to hire you to do that kind of work. You want to go in and you want to have a look at what you believe are your weakest shots and just take them out. It doesn't matter if it's going to make the showreel much shorter. Sometimes the shorter the showreel, the better. I'm going to talk more about length later, but I do want to stress that you shouldn't put any work in there that you don't really think is very good, because people are going to judge you on your weakest shots. A question that I often get is, does it matter if it's all personal work? And it really doesn't matter. Actually, I've heard a lot of creative directors and studio owners say that they really like to see your personal work because it shows your personality and what you really like to do. One of our recent students in our course Client Quest, Aldo, made a personal work showreel. He didn't have any client work, but he made his personal work look like it could be commercial work. And to be honest, it's one of the best showreels that I've ever seen. I think this is a great example of a really short, concise, amazing showreel purely made of personal work. Step 2 is to choose your music. You want to make sure that you have royalty-free music. So I recommend going to a site like Envato Elements or Artlist and choosing a track that you like over there. This is going to help you to lay down your clips and to edit the showreel to music. And if you're not a very good editor, maybe you could actually hire someone else to help you to edit your showreel, because as motion designers and animators, we might actually not be the people who are usually doing the editing. So I don't think that we necessarily need to edit our showreels. And sometimes it could be better to get someone else who has an outside perspective on your work. So step 3, you should lay down your clips on your timeline with your music. Now don't get too into the nitty-gritty here. What I want you to do is just get your royalty-free music in there and also your best clips and just lay them in any order. It doesn't really matter. What we're doing is we're trying to fast track this process. So we just want to get it in there. And I recommend doing that and then going away and maybe coming back to it a few days later with fresh eyes, because this is going to help you to create the best showreel possible. Step 4 is to determine the length of the showreel. So once you've got your clips in there and your music, this is going to make this so much easier. Now there isn't necessarily an ideal length of a showreel, but most showreels should probably be under 1 minute unless you have really incredible work. But I think most of us aren't in that situation. I would just make sure you're really brutal and just chop anything out that isn't really good. Like, we have to be very strict with ourselves here and make sure you're only putting your best work in there, like I said, because I've seen lots of 30-second showreels recently that have been fantastic. So I'm not saying this is the ideal length for you, but definitely trying to aim between 30 seconds and 1 minute is probably a pretty safe bet. In step 5, of course, you're going to edit your clips together. It's good to think about flow here and how one thing transitions to the other. So maybe if you have a similar shape in one project and a similar shape in another project, you could create one transition with them and make your reel seem more seamless. And it's really good to pay attention to the details at this point, because you're going to try and make the best showreel possible. But don't get overwhelmed, because done is almost definitely better than perfect. Step 6 is to get honest feedback. Now, this can be quite hard to do. You don't want to ask your friends and family. We all know your mum is going to say that the reel is great, right? So I recommend finding a passionate group of motion designers that you can get help from. At Motion Hatch, we have communities attached to all of our courses. And in Client Quest, we actually do a reel and portfolio review every single month. So if you would like to get your reel reviewed by me, then check out the link below this video. I asked some of our students from our course Client Quest to share their reels with me so I could show you some examples. I'll leave all their websites in the description below this video. So what I really like about Lance's reel is that he has used sound effects. And this is something that we talked about on our recent roundtable. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave the link below this video in the description. But I think Lance has done a great job of using sound effects in his reel. Lance also has some pretty awesome personal projects in his show reel. So it shows you that you definitely don't have to use all client work. And I think Lance does a really good job of mixing his client work with his personal work. And it still feels really great and really cohesive. I love the outro on Alex's showreel because I think this really shows what his studio is about and that he works with sustainable and ethical brands. So it shows that you can put your personality into your intros and outros and really attract the types of clients that you want. Another way that you can edit your reel is you could have an existing reel and you could slot different shots in as you make new work. This is a good way to have an in-between stage where you don't have to do a brand new reel every single time, but you are updating it with your latest and best work. And I know that Alex from the Disruption Society has been doing this with his current reel, and he's just updated his branding, but he didn't change the whole reel and start from scratch. He just updated his old one, which really helped him to save time, but make sure that he's getting the best work out there. I think for a studio, you could show a few more diverse projects, but I think if you're a solo freelancer, you might want to make your reel feel a little bit more cohesive. What I really like about Vivian's showreel is that he's really thought about it, and he has some animation and text actually from the lyrics that are in the song. And I feel like this really makes it stand out. And I think it's very high energy as well. What I also really like about Vivian's reel is that he's showing a really high-end personal project that he did. It's a fantastic example of showing the work that you want to do. So he wants to work more on title sequences. So he created his own title sequence for The Witcher, and I think it's fantastic. It's an amazing title sequence, and it shows his clients the work that he really wants to do. So I think this is a great example of how personal work can really help you get into the work that you want to do. What I really like about these shots is that they kind of go back in time all the time to finally it's a big push out from the full screen footage into the UI. And I think that's a really nice way to do it. He's obviously thought about how the shots are progressing and what shot goes after the other and how to make it look good and like it really flows from one shot to the next.
It shouldn't take this long. I'm a patient person, but now when I know you're wrong, while you sat there thinking silently and still, I guess you don't like talking much, and I don't think you ever will. I was running for hours, I was falling for days, I was trying to ask you, do you feel the same? But now I'm laughing, baby, I know you'll never change, 'cause it's too late, baby, too late to feel the same.
I think that Tad from the Merry Men has done a really good job of building tension in his reel. At around 38 seconds, he really speeds up the shots to go with the music, and I think this works really well. And this is an example of a way that you can really use music to create more energy and to keep your clients engaged with your reel. Tad from the Merry Men does a good job of mixing his client work with his personal work, but it doesn't feel like too commercial and doesn't stand out too much. I think Tad's reel is a little bit long, and I think that he could cut some of the shots out and it would make it even better than it already is. Now I'm going to share some showreel do's and don'ts. These are based on questions I often get asked on social media and also in our course Client Quest. Sometimes it's really hard to work on your reel, especially when you've been doing client work all day and you're just really tired. So I'd recommend that you create a project plan for your reel so that you can treat it like a client project, and also make sure you give yourself a deadline. You could use a tool like Notion or ClickUp to create a project plan for yourself, and this is going to help you to keep on track. Another question that I often get asked about reels is, should I put coursework in my reel? And I think it's okay if you've designed the coursework, because then you can't really tell that it's from a course. But unfortunately, some of the animation courses give you design assets, and if you haven't created the assets, then everybody's work kind of starts to look the same, and I think that it can make you look a little more junior than you actually are. So what I would say is definitely do courses and learn more and improve your animation skills, but you should create your own personal work based on what you learned in the course. It's really important to do a good intro for your showreel. So it doesn't have to be very long, but it needs to be great, and it should be in a style that you really want to get work doing. I'd also recommend that you don't put the year on your showreel or your email or your phone number. If you put the year on there, it's going to date it pretty quickly. So it's best to not include it, because that means you can use this intro for a little bit longer. But also putting your email or your phone number on there isn't great, because you might change it, and most of the time you're going to have it on your website or somewhere where people can contact you anyway. One thing that we share in our portfolio guide, which you can download below this video in the description, is that you should always include credits. It's good to share credits under your reel, because you might not have made every single piece of work on your reel, or maybe you had a different role, like on one piece you were the designer and on another piece you were the animator, so you need to make sure that you let the client know that. Another thing that someone told me when I was a freelance that absolutely blew my mind is that you can reanimate some of your work that you put in your reel. What can happen sometimes is we start a project and we think it's really great, and then because of time constraints, or maybe your client needs you to hit a deadline, the animation isn't quite as good as we would like it to be. So you can take a small shot from that piece and you could reanimate it or improve on it and then add that into your reel. But also that brings me on to making sure that you get permission from your client to show work in your reel, because what you don't want to happen is your client to be upset with you for sharing some work online that you weren't supposed to. So I always recommend having a clause in your contract where you can use their work for marketing purposes. This isn't legal advice, but it definitely is good practice, and you should absolutely seek permission from your client to share any work online and on your website. Let me know in the comments if this helped you to update your reel. I'd love to hear from you. Now that you know how to make an amazing reel, you might want to watch this video next where I review my own show reel from 2010. It's pretty bad.